Hello, hello, hello. Let's say I'd like to learn my way around the fretboard. I'd like to learn a few reasons I would say for me that I would want to learn the notes of all the scales and be able to identify the triads from the scales is to unlock the fretboard to be able to find the notes in various positions, to be able to modulate keys when a song, for example, even a song that I've written doesn't suit my voice in a moment in a particular key, I can change the key. To be able to identify all types of chords and find them anywhere on the neck. So it's really great and helpful that there are only 12 notes in all of Western music. And it's great that they came from the major scale that we use, from the well-tempered system developed by various composers, Johann Sebastian Bach among them, in the 1610s, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think that's correct. Where they actually took the harmonic series and bent it. They bent the distance between, they kind of manipulated the distance between intervals in the scale in order to be able to play in octaves. So knowing the step pattern of the major scale and knowing the notes in the chromatic scale, all 12 notes, gives me all the tools to be able to learn the notes. And so we know that there's 7 naturals, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We know that there's 5, what we refer to as accidentals, which can be either sharps or flats. And knowing the 12 notes, like one of the keys to unlock what we're going to do is to remember that between all the natural notes, there is an accidental except for 2 pairs of natural notes. The 2 pairs of natural notes that do not have an accidental between them, which can be either sharp or flat, depending on the context, they are B and C, no sharp or flat between them, and E and F. Another way of saying that is that, excuse me, that they are the only natural half steps in the 12 notes system, meaning that they're the only natural notes that if you go a half step, there won't be an accidental between them. Every other natural note, say you're ascending and you're at F, you go half step, you've got an F sharp or G flat, depending on the context. If you're on G and you are ascending, you've got a G sharp or an A flat, depending on the context. A ascending, A sharp or B flat, depending on the context. B half step, C. C half step up, C sharp or D flat, depending on the context. D ascending, D sharp, E flat, depending on the context. E half step ascending is F. If you remember that, if we remember it, if I remember that, then I can remember the step pattern of the major scale: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And I can apply it on any note. I can apply it on A sharp, I can apply it on B flat, I can apply it on G flat. I can apply it, begin it on any accidental, on any natural note. And I can discover the notes of the major scale of that key. Another solid key that is necessary for this working is to remember alphabetical continuity. So the actual saying the note and the step in the major scale in whatever starting point, if you remember hold on to alphabetical continuity, then that will give you, in the accidentals, for example, it will give you whether it's a sharp or a flat, because there won't be another option. Meaning, you're not going to have an A and an A sharp in the same key. So if you come upon a half step, you've landed on A and you're ascending, and you have a half step wherever you're at in the major scale, then you know that the next note is what? It's not A sharp, it's an accidental, it's B flat. Meaning you won't have two A's or two B's or two C's. It's always going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and some of them are going to be either sharp or flat. And the step pattern of the major scale, and knowing that the two natural pairs, the natural half steps, are B to C and E to F. If you keep those things, and it's a little tricky at first if you haven't been messing with it, but it's simple. They're unmovable patterns. They're not morphing and spinning around in space. It's not trigonometry. Well, maybe there is some trigonometry in there somewhere if you look at the actual frequencies, but or for looking at the actual frequencies. So another really big key, which I'm not going to do right here, I'm going to skip it, but is, or maybe just touch on it briefly, is remembering that when we use different parts of our brain to access a problem, or an answer rather, if we use different parts of our brain to access the answer, then it's retained much stronger. Like we can really hold it in. So if I use left and right brain and I allow both access to the problem, the equation, then I'm more likely to remember it. So just looking at a book or patterns on a page, like, sure, yeah, you can find these cool chord shapes or whatever, and you can remember the chord shapes. But if I give my other part of my brain access to what are these chords, what makes up these chords, then that opens up everything. It frees my ability up to navigate the chords and to find them stronger and to understand them. So instead of just playing things by rote that sound good to me, which is fine and dandy, but I can learn the notes of the chords, and then I'll realize that, oh, that's a C with the fifth, C7 with the fifth on the bottom, G7 with the, and D7 with the fifth on the bottom, and an A7 and an E7 with the fifth on the bottom. And that gives me like unlimited advantage to being able to explore, and it's to explore musically is really fun. It's super cool, and to learn the fundamentals gives me the resources where by, like, say I'm writing a song or attempting to write a song, and I'm like, you know, okay, I'm in this 1-4-5, and I feel there's a different part of the song and I don't know where to go. Like, just having the knowledge of it just kind of opens up the pathways of exploration, which is really great. So the exercise that I'm diving into or want to get into is to go over all the major scales, go through all 12 keys. And as I do it in a systematic way, I'm going to notice patterns. I'm going to notice notes that are shared between keys. I'm going to notice the number of sharps or flats and how they relate to the other keys. I'm going to notice all these things, and it's going to start to unlock and form pathways of understanding that's going to be free things up, and it's going to be really fun, and it's going to get more fun and more fun. So I want to learn the notes. I want to unlock not just the fretboard, but other instruments too. Like, I want to understand what's being played and what can be played. And I just want to explore. I want to learn. I want to go somewhere. I want to find something. And it's totally fine to not want that and prefer other things. But that's what I want. And if you're satisfied with your playing, that's wonderful. That's absolutely excellent. That's so cool. And if it feels good and continues to feel good, then you've won. And we'll just stop and give you the recognition right now. You've won. So I know I'm jumping around, and I'm going to work on this. I'm going to get better at it. But what I want to do is learn the notes. And so I'm going to apply the step pattern to the major scale. And the first thing I'm going to do is do it in my head without visualizing anything. I'm not going to visualize a piano keyboard. I'm not going to imagine a physical representation unless it's the actual number. Like, I'm going to imagine an A with a little sharp symbol or something like that floating in the air in front of me. But I'm not going to imagine, and the reason I'm not going to imagine a physical object being the representation, like the fretboard, this is, you know, visually it's cool, and it's really, we're going to work with it, and it's going to be great. But we're working with frequency. We're not working with physical object. The physical object is the tool to reach working with the frequency, to work with vibration. That's what we're trying to work with. We're not trying to work with, like, you know, people will say, that is a D chord, you know, and lock into the visual representation of that is a D chord. Okay, well, what made it a D chord? And why is that a D chord? Is this a D chord then? Same shape. Doesn't sound the same. So anyway, I want to work with frequency and vibration. I'm working with sound. The guitar is a tool to do that. And so in order to learn the notes, first I want to go through this step process in my head. And I think the first time I would do it while driving, I would do it while working, I would do it while washing dishes, whatever, just a task that was like, I can have attention, but I can also move things in my head, and sometimes if you have a lot of chatter, if you need a little focus, give the chatter a function, like, hey, work on this equation, so they're not working on this over there. So I'm going to apply the step pattern of the major scale, and I'm going to go through all 12 keys. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to start the second scale. I'm going to do a scale, I'm going to choose a key, I'm going to start that scale, and I'm going to begin the second scale on the fourth note of the scale that I just did. And by doing so, I'm going to go through an entire 12-note circle of fourths. So same notes, I'm just going to begin each scale on the fourth note of the scale that precedes it. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but I want to do the whole all 12 keys. Excuse me, I did not know what is taking up resonance in my throat. I'm going to go through all 12 keys in my head, saying the step and the note. And I'm going to go from the root to the octave and back. And then I'm going to identify the 1, the 3, and the 5 of that key before proceeding to the next key. And I'll give you an example. We'll say B. We'll say start on the key of B. And I'm going to go B. Remembering 2 natural pairs, B to C, E to F, right? So saying the step will deliver you to the next note, because you know that there's 7 natural notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and 5 accidentals. If you maintain the step pattern of the major scale and alphabetical continuity, it will tell you whether it is a B flat or an A sharp. Okay, so we start on B. I'm going to say B, whole step, C sharp. Remember, B to C is a half step, and I'm doing a whole step. A whole step is composed of 2 half steps, so B, whole step, C sharp. That's the first whole step in the major scale. Second whole step, so B, whole step, C sharp, whole step, D sharp, half step, E, whole step, F sharp, whole step, G sharp, whole step, A sharp, half step, B, B, half step, A sharp, whole step, G sharp, whole step, F sharp, whole step, E, half step, D sharp, whole step, C sharp, whole step, B. And the 1 is B, the 3 is D sharp, and the 5 is F sharp. So B, D sharp, F sharp is the triad, the major triad, because it's the 1, 3, 5 of the major scale in the key of B. Then I'm going to begin the next practice, the next scale, on the 4th of the key that I just am in, which is the key of B. The 4th, remember the 5th is F sharp, the 3rd is D sharp, the 4th is E. So I'm going to begin the next scale on the key of E. And then I'm going to go through all 12 notes. I'm going to do all of them in my head, not visualizing an instrument, not locking that into the idea of an instrument. And the reason why is because we want to work with sound. We want to work with frequency, energy, movement, waves in the air that are invisible, but we can sense and hear, and not just wood and wire, which is great. Wood and wire is a great tool to access that. Our voice is the best, our body. the air conditioning or the heater unit that just came on. All of these things, sound, frequency. All right. So when I've done that, I did it for a couple weeks, and I made cue cards of the 1, 3, 5. So I would say, I would have a little cue card, I'd write a big A, and then I would just be consistent across the cue cards and write the 3rd up in the right-hand corner and the 5th in the bottom right-hand corner. So a little C sharp in the upper right hand and an E in the lower right hand for the key of A. And I think I used them for a day, maybe 2. I would use them just as an aid for when my brain started to get scrambled. Like, I was just on B and I did a half step, and is that a... It's a C. And doing that in my mind was like, it was challenging for me, having problems focusing to begin with, and then I took that and applied it to the guitar. And when I applied it to the guitar, then it locked in. And I've had classical training since I was a kid in voice. I've been in a choir, sung in 5 different languages, toured the country from the time I was 9 years old. And I couldn't have told you what the triad in any key, major triad, minor triad, augmented triad, diminished triad, I couldn't have told you anything. Note-wise, because I was learning by rote. I was told to hit this note, someone would hit a piano and come in, that note, and I'd have to remember it and reach it. So being able to learn the notes and learn what we're working with is like super fun for me and super freeing. So I take that same process and I apply it to the guitar. And I want to go through all 12 keys. You can start anywhere, but I want to start as close to the headstock as possible. And I'm going to start on the 6th string, the E. So I would go E, whole step, F sharp, whole step, G sharp, half step, A, whole step, B, whole step, C sharp, whole step, D sharp, half step, E, half step, D sharp, whole step, C sharp, whole step, B, whole step, A, half step, G sharp, whole step, F sharp, whole step, E. And then I would find the triad, the 1, 3, and the 5. E, G sharp, B, G sharp, E. And I would do that all the way through. I'll make another video that is just the exercise because once again I've talked all around it. So I want to make another video and just go through the exercise and all 12 keys. And I don't know if it'll be helpful for you, but let me know. I hope it is. What comes after is, to me, it starts to get really fun. Like, going through that cycle is meditative. There's a bit of submission, to it, where it's like, oh, this might not be the most fun thing that you do when you pick up a guitar, and yet it's a step to being the most fun thing we can do with the guitar. It's like, pro football players lifting weights and practicing ballet and doing things that are hard and take a lot of commitment and devotion and focus. It's like the quality of our focus in deliberate practice exponentially expands our ability to play. And they're really the same thing. Like, whenever I'm with the guitar, even doing that scale, like, make it musical. It's music. We're playing with the frequencies right now. It's not a chore. So E, whole step, F sharp, whole step, sharp, half step E, half step D sharp, whole step C sharp, whole step B, whole step A, half step G sharp, whole step F sharp, whole step